Hello, and welcome to the 2023-24 free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA, step-by-step instructions for high school seniors and their parents. This is a step-by-step tutorial designed to help high school seniors class of 2023 complete the FAFSA. These slides were designed by Champions for Learning, who has a mission to create life-changing learning experiences for every student with a vision of a community that is 100% engaged in support of student success. You can learn more about Champions for Learning by visiting championsforlearning.org. Champions for Learning is a partner in Future Ready Collier, which is a network of more than 60 organizations, businesses, schools, and community members working to ensure every child is ready for kindergarten and every young person enters adulthood with a vision and a plan to accomplish that vision. Future Ready Collier is the Collier partner supporting the 5-County Future Makers Coalition with a goal to transform Southwest Florida's workforce by increasing the number of college degrees, certificates, or other high-quality credentials from 27% to 60% by 2025. FAFSA completion is considered the #1 indicator of college going and provides access to a range of financial support to students. Champions for Learning partners with Collier County Public Schools and other partners to leverage resources to support students and their families to complete the FAFSA. We play a lead role in providing resources, training volunteers, and facilitating FAFSA completion events. These screenshots were prepared by Champions for Learning and are provided by Federal Student Aid, an office of the U.S. Department of Education. They are based on a fictional student family situation and are intended to be used for training purposes. Okay, so let's start. Before we jump right into completing the FAFSA, the first thing we need to do is make sure that the student that's completing the FAFSA, as well as the parent's information that's going to be used on the FAFSA, both have an FSAID username and password. To create that username and password, you can visit studentaid.gov/FSA-ID. And on that screen at the bottom, right under the login, you'll see don't have an account, create an account. You'll use a different email address for the student and the parent, and this is so that you can digitally sign and submit your FAFSA. You're going to use this FSAID every single year that you're completing a FAFSA, so you're going to want to write down that username, password, the email that you used, so that you can access that every time that you're going in, completing a FAFSA, maybe updating a FAFSA throughout the years. We do have step-by-step instructions on how to complete that FSAID in English, Spanish, and Creole. You can visit collierschools.com/financial aid or championsforlearning.org/resources to view step-by-step video instructions on how to complete the FSAID. Ideally, you're going to need to complete your FSAID 3 to 5 business days before completing the FAFSA. It takes about 3 to 5 days for your information to be verified to complete the FAFSA. Also, before you begin, there's a few documents that you're going to want to have in front of you to help make completing the FAFSA a little smoother. You're going to want the student's social security number or alien registration number, the parent's social security number as well, if they have one. If the parent doesn't have a social security number, don't worry. We're going to walk you through how to handle that situation today. But keep in mind that the student's eligibility is not dependent on the parent's citizenship status, so no worries. Also, you're going to need your 2021 federal tax returns for the parent, and if the student filed taxes, those 2021 taxes as well. You're also going to want to have records of any untaxed income, the balances of your checking and savings accounts, and any other investments other than the home in which you live in. Also, as a tip, make sure the computer you're using has your pop-ups enabled before starting the FAFSA. When we try to link to the IRS, that's going to come up through as a pop-up, so you're going to want to make sure you already have those pop-ups enabled. Okay, let's get started. So to begin, you're going to want to go to studentaid.gov/FAFSA. Really important to type this in your browser, don't Google. Sometimes you'll get a different link or a company that may want to charge you to complete your FAFSA. Remember, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, so we want to make sure you're doing it at the correct website. So since this is the first time doing a FAFSA, we're going to click the Start Here button as the first time. Now, if we have to come back and update or correct information or add a school down the line, you can use that second option to log in. Okay, when we complete the FAFSA, we want the student to be in the driver's seat. So the student should be the one logging in. They're going to be filling out the majority of the information. So in this situation, we're going to click I am the student and I want to access the FAFSA form, the first option. And then it's going to ask us to log in. Now, if we didn't have that FSA ID, we could also stop and do that here. But since we've already created our FSA ID, we can click log in to continue. You'll also notice as you're navigating through the FAFSA, in the bottom right-hand corner, you have a little owl icon. You can click that little owl and it'll give you updated information about what you're seeing on the page. If you have a specific type of question, it's an automated question response that they've added to the FAFSA. So you might find the question or the answer to your question by clicking the little green owl. There's also some other ways to find definitions as we go through, so we'll walk you through those as we proceed. So first, the student's going to enter their username and password. This is that FSA ID username and password. Enter it and then select login. You're going to get a pop-up that you're accessing a US federal government system. You can read through that and accept. Okay, so now once we're on this page, it's going to ask which year are you applying for financial aid. All of our high school seniors class of 2023 are going to be completing the 2023/24 FAFSA. This is intended for them to use when they start any post-high school education in the fall of 2023. Now, perhaps you're thinking about, or maybe you're going to get a college acceptance that is for the summer of 2023. In that case, you may also want to complete the 2022-23 FAFSA. But for now, we're going to do the 23-24, and if needed, you can go back and add the 22-23 at a later time. You'll also notice in the bottom right underneath that, that it shows your FSA ID has been processed and matched. See, so you'll see that little green check mark there. We know we're all set to proceed. So we're going to go ahead and select start the 23-24 FAFSA. Okay, we need to select or create a save key. This is just a temporary password, 4 letters, 4 numbers. In case we don't finish today or have to come back later and update information, we would do it here in this space. Really important though to make sure we write this down and keep this information safe in case we do need to come back at a later time. Okay, if you weren't sure how you were going to proceed through the FAFSA, or you had some questions, they've added some question and answer information here. This doesn't answer anything on the FAFSA. This is just commonly asked questions. You're welcome to read through that. We're going to hit continue and continue walking through what you do need to complete. Now, based on how the student entered their FSA ID username and password, this information on this screen will be pre-filled. So just take a moment, make sure it was all entered correctly, and then you'll select continue. Again, the student's email and phone number should be pre-filled from what appeared in the FSA ID username and password. If you did not verify your phone number when creating that, you do have the opportunity here to add your phone number. And the student's address should also be pre-populated from the FSA ID username and password. Again, make sure that this is the permanent mailing address. And then it's going to ask if the student has lived in Florida for at least 5 years and the student's citizenship status. So a couple options there. And when going through the FAFSA, if you're unsure how to answer a question, you'll notice at the end of each question, there's a small gray question mark with a circle around it. You can select that and you'll get a pop-up that'll give you a little definition about what they're looking for this answer, how to answer that, or what the different options mean. So whenever you're not sure, you're welcome to click that and get a little bit more information. Okay, we're going to go through these questions individually, as this is the most common page that errors are made on the FAFSA. So what will your high school completion status be when you begin college in the 23-24 school year? Most of our high school seniors, class of 23, you're going to have your high school diploma. This next question, what college degree or certificate will you be working on when you begin the school year? You have a couple options here. You could be working on an associate's degree, maybe a technical degree or certificate, up to a first bachelor's degree. So really important that even though our aspiration may be to go to law school or go to become a doctor, when we start college next year, we're going to be working on a lower level degree. So we're going to be working on an associate's, a technical degree, up to a first bachelor's degree. We won't be going right to that doctorate as we haven't done the prerequisites. So make sure you answer that question correctly. Then it asks, will you have your first bachelor's degree before you begin the school year? As a high school senior, you would not. And then this next question, what will your college grade level be when you begin the 23-24 school year? All of our high school seniors that are class of 23 should be answering this question the same as never attended college first year. So even if you've done dual enrollment or maybe taken AP or ACE classes, or maybe you've even going to be achieving your associate's degree while in high school at the same time, because that work has been done through your high school, you've never officially matriculated into a college. So it's very important that your school knows for financial aid purposes, you are an incoming freshman and you've never attended college. And then finally, are you interested in being considered for work study? This is a federal program that, based on your cost of attendance and aid awarded, may provide you with an opportunity to work on your school's campus to earn dollars toward your cost of attendance. It does not guarantee you a job, but we encourage students to select yes and then follow up based on their financial aid award letter to see if that is an option. If you're unsure, it's okay to select don't know. If you'd like more information about what the federal work study program is, again, click that little check mark or the question mark with the circle, and you can get a little bit more information. Okay, let's continue. If the student has a driver's license, go ahead and enter that information in the state it was issued through. If you don't worry, this is not going to penalize you. Okay, now it's going to ask if the student was in foster care or the foster care system at any time, and then what the highest school completed was by parent 1 and by parent 2. So parent 1 should be the biological parent that you live with at least 51% of the time or more, and then parent 2 would be if parent 1 is married, their spouse. So it's possible that there is not a parent 2. You have a couple options here. And if you're unsure, it's okay to select other or unknown. This is really to where financial aid is trying to initially determine if you are going to be considered a first generation college going student. Okay, now we're going to add your high school. So you're going to select your state, your city. You can put in your school's name, and then you're going to hit the search. Once you hit search, you're going to see a long list of schools in that area. You're going to select the radio button next to your high school's name. And then it will ask you again, just to confirm that we have selected the correct high school. And then continue. Now this page looks similar to the one we just completed, but you'll notice at the top, instead of selecting your high school, we are now selecting the colleges that we want to have your FAFSA sent to. So when completing the FAFSA, you can send it up to 10 different colleges. Now, keep in mind, these colleges you don't have to have received an acceptance. In fact, you don't even have to have submitted your application yet. So don't worry, the colleges can't see what other colleges you've sent them to. There's nothing along those lines. Now, if you're applying to more than 10 schools, you can come back later and adjust or adapt and edit your FAFSA as needed to add schools or remove schools. But for now, you can add up to 10 schools. If you don't know those schools' federal school codes, you can use this search tab by putting in the state, the city. If you'd like to type the school name, you can as well. Keep in mind, though, that some schools may have multiple campuses. In this example, Florida Southwestern State College has multiple campuses, but their main campus is in Fort Myers. So when we search to add FSW to our list, there's only one FSW in Fort Myers. This isn't telling them that we want to go to the Fort Myers campus. It's just saying we want our FAFSA sent to FSW. So as we go through and search for different schools, we can continue to click the radio buttons and add them, go back and search until we have all 10 schools or as many as you'd like to add. Now, when we have finished adding all of our schools, you'll notice that they put them in a list. On the left, you'll see how they're numbered 1, 2, 3, etc. It's very important in the state of Florida that you make sure that the school that is listed in the first position is a Florida public school. So it can be a technical school like Lorenzo Walker. It can be a state college like FSW. It could be a state university like Florida Gulf Coast. The reason for this is that it indicates to the state that you may be eligible for state aid. So keep in mind, in the state of Florida, we also have colleges that have the title like university or Florida in their name. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are a public institution. So make sure you know for sure that that is a Florida public institution you're putting in the first position. And if not, you can, as you see those little arrows up and above, you can move those positions very easily. The schools cannot see what positions you have put the other schools in, nor the other schools, so you do not need to worry about that. And then finally, we need to select what the housing plan will be for each one of those schools. So ideally, if that school offers on-campus housing, it's a good idea to select that. Now, that doesn't mean you have to live on the campus. It doesn't guarantee you a dorm. You still would have to go through the housing application process. But what this tells the school is that when you're calculating my financial aid, include on-campus housing into my cost, into my financial aid offer. This is important because let's say even though your dream may be to live off campus with friends in an apartment, financial aid typically would not cover that off-campus apartment. So by putting on campus and saying you want to live in a dorm, you're really going to get a good idea of what that cost would be and what could be covered. Keep in mind, though, there are schools that do not have on-campus housing as an option. For instance, if you were to check Lorenzo Walker Technical College, even though there's an option for on-campus, they don't have housing there. So you would really want to select either off-campus or with parents, depending upon your personal situation. So make sure you select one of those options for each school that you've added before proceeding. Okay. Now it's asking the student's marital status. So as of today, what is the student's marital status? And there's a drop-down option, and then we'll continue. Now it's asking, does the student that's completing the FAFSA, does the student completing have children that they will support more than half of the time from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th of 2024? Yes or no? And does the student that's completing the FAFSA have other dependents who live with them and they will support them more than 51% of the time? Yes or no? Okay, now it's again asking, this is about the student. Is the student currently serving active duty in the armed forces? Are they a veteran? At any time since the age of 13, were both parents deceased, or were they in foster care or a ward of the court? As determined by a state in the legal residence, were you an emancipated minor? Or does someone other than your parent or step-parent have legal guardianship of you? If none of those apply, you'll want to select none of the above before hitting continue. And then there's a question on or after July 1st of 2022, was the student homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? You're welcome to click that little question mark to get a little better definition. Keep in mind, homeless does not necessarily mean that you are living in a shelter or in a car. That can mean that you don't have a permanent nighttime resident. For most of our students in Collier County, you probably, if this is your situation, you've been working with your school counselor and you have that homeless youth certificate. So if you need a little bit more definition about what that should look like, or if your situation changes, this is just good information to know and to be able to work with your school counselor for support. Okay, so based upon how we have answered all of those questions, it's now telling us that we need to provide our parents information to complete the FAFSA. Keep in mind that, and for most students, until you are the age of 24, married, have a child that you're supporting at least 51%, are in the military or a veteran, you're going to have to provide your parents' information. There's a few other outlying options, but for the majority of our students, until they are 24, they will provide parent information on the FAFSA. So in this situation, we're selecting that we will provide that information and selecting continue. Okay, as we are getting ready to enter parent information, it's going to give you a little options around looking at the definitions for what your parent situation is. So if your parents are living together, your parents are divorced, when they use the term parent, so they're talking about your biological parents. So ideally, the parent that's helping you fill out the FAFSA is the parent that you live with, the biological parent that you live with 51% of the time or more. And there would be only a parent 2 if parent 1 is married or remarried. Okay. Now, as of today, what is that parent's marital status? There's a couple options there. And once you've selected that option, you're also then going to add what date that change happened. And then we'll select continue. Okay, so for the first parent, we're going to enter their social security number, last name, date of birth, and email. If the parent does not have a social security number, that's okay. Remember, it's not going to impact you negatively. We're going to enter all zeros for the social security number, so it will allow you to proceed. And then when we get to the end, we'll show you how to submit a signature page. And since your parent won't be able to digitally sign, because they didn't have a social security number, couldn't create an FSA ID, that's okay. Now, if there is a parent 2, you will then hit continue and enter a little bit of information about parent 2. Keep in mind, there's only going to be a parent 2 if parent 1 is married. Okay, then as of today, have your parents lived in Florida for at least 5 years? Yes or no? And now we're going to calculate what your household size is going to be, or it's going to calculate for us. So how many other dependent children do your parents have? So how many children are going to rely on your parents for more than half of their support from July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024? Or can answer no to every dependency question on the FAFSA form. You can click that blue link where it says dependency status, and I'll show you those again. So a great example of this is maybe you have an older sibling that is in college, and even though they're not living in your house, your parents are still financially supporting them. You can include them in that number. So this would just be siblings that are living with you, or that siblings that your parents are providing more than half of their support for. The second section is how many other dependents do your parents have? These dependents do have to live with your parents. They also have to receive more than half of their support from your parents and will continue to receive more than half of the support from your parents in the next year. So this could be an example, for example, grandparents, aunts and uncles, you would include them in that area. Okay, now based upon how we answered that previous section, it's calculated our household size at 4. So 1 for the student, 2 because there were 2 parents, and then an additional 1 because we mentioned that there was another sibling living in the house that the parents were supporting. So that makes the household size 4. Now to calculate the number in college, FAFSA looks at the student, you, plus the other dependent children, to calculate how many of those will be in college within the next year. So out of those 2 dependent children, how many will be in college within the next year? There should be at least 1 for the student that's completing the FAFSA, but it could be as high as the other children that are in the household as well. This does not include your parents in this number though, even if the parents are going to be in college. Okay, now we're going to start entering your parents' tax information. So before we begin this section, it's a really good idea to go ahead, pull out your 2021 tax return and have it next to you. Even if we're able to use the IRS data retrieval tool, we're going to find information on the taxes to make sure we can accurately answer these questions to the best of our ability. So if we can use the IRS tool, it's going to reduce the amount of time completing the FAFSA and reduce the opportunity to make an error. Also, about 25% of students that complete a FAFSA are randomly selected for a process called verification. And by providing that or completing using the IRS data retrieval tool, if a student is selected for verification, it makes the process a little bit easier if we've already used the data retrieval tool. But don't worry, even if you're not able to, we can still walk through the FAFSA. And in fact, in this example, we're going to act like we aren't able to use the data retrieval tool, just so you can see exactly how it would look. So using the taxes, you're going to, if your parents has already completed the taxes, we're going to select they've already completed. And you're going to look at the top left-hand corner of the taxes to see what type of tax return the parents filed. So in this case, they filed an IRS form 1040. Then what type of tax status, according to their tax return, did they use? This is in the center right under the address. Typically it's married filing jointly or head of household, maybe single, depending upon what type of taxes they used. Now, based on how you answer those 3 questions, you may see in the center here this IRS data retrieval tool. If it gives you this option, we encourage you to select proceed to the IRS and try to do that because it will import all of the information. It'll give you a couple attempts to link your information in correctly. And if not, it'll still let you proceed and enter it manually. So don't fret. But again, it does make it a little bit easier if you are able to. So if it lets you proceed to the IRS data retrieval tool, you're going to enter the parents' FSA-ID, username, and password by logging in. And then it's going to ask you for the address, name, that type of information. It's right from the top of your taxes. You're going to want to type it exactly how it appears on that IRS tax return. So if it says that you live at 123 School Lane, type out LANE or just how it appears on your taxes. Don't abbreviate if it's abbreviated. It'll give you 3 attempts to match and import your information. So again, because this is a simulated test run, we are not able to link into the IRS. We're going to enter everything manually. If you were able to successfully use that IRS data retrieval tool, instead of typing in an information and seeing the number in the answer area here, you would see transferred from the IRS and the box would be grayed out. But since we're answering it manually, in this case, when we are asked a question about the taxes, it's going to tell us exactly which line to look at on the taxes. So in this case, we're looking at the tax line 11, and we're going to take the amount that's in line 11 and enter it into the box. Then we can hit continue. Now on this next page, depending upon if both parents work or what type of form you use, you may also need to look at the W-2s, because this is saying basically on the previous, out of the previous amount, how much was did parent 1 earn and how much did parent 2 earn? So it's trying to split that income and determine how much each parent earned. Okay, now it's going to ask if the parent completed a Schedule 1. If you're not familiar with what a Schedule 1 is, you can click that blue Learn More About or the question mark. If you really can't determine if they filed or not, you can select Don't Know on this question. Okay, so now we're back to looking at our taxes. It's telling us exactly which line we should be looking at and answering. These questions, it's going to read through each one of these and ask it, and if the parent had any of these. Some of these may be items from their taxes. If it's a blank, you can leave it as a 0 and continue. And you'll have a couple pages of these types of questions. Keep in mind, one page is going to ask if your parents paid child support, and then the next page will ask if the parents received any child support. So 2 different sections there. Just make sure we're reading those correctly. It's going to ask if they received any other type of untaxed income or veterans non-education benefits. Now, at some point it may say, do you want to skip the remaining questions about your parents' assets? As a general rule, if any point the FAFSA asks if you want to skip questions, we recommend you say yes. That means based upon what we have answered, FAFSA has enough information to go ahead and continue to the next area. So really no reason you need to give them additional information at this point. We're going to select yes and continue on. Now, you may not have the screen. You may have some more questions that they're asking. If they need more information, they may be asking about your investments, including your retirement, potentially some balances on your checking and savings, things along those lines. Again, if you're not sure what to include in an area, use that question mark with the circle around it. It's going to give you a really good definition of what you should and should not include in those areas. Okay, now it looks like we've seen this page just a few minutes ago, but you'll notice at the top, it has switched to student tax filing status. So now it's saying, what did the student file taxes in 2021? Now, some of our students may have, but they may not have. So you're going to answer that question, did the student file taxes? This is their own tax return, meaning not that they were claimed on the parents' taxes, but did the student earn income and file their own taxes? So in this simulation, the student did not file, so they're going to select not going to file. Now they may have done a little work and just made a small amount of money, but not being required to file. They can enter that here. And just like on the parents, we're going to read through each one of these questions and see if this applies. But again, keep in mind, this is students' information. So did any of these apply to the student? And we have a couple pages of these as well. And then again, it asks if we want to skip the remaining questions about the student assets. Again, we're going to select yes. That means FAFSA has enough information on the student. And we're going to select continue. Okay, we're almost done. Now, at this point, you're going to see what's called a Fafsa summary. Now, it hasn't processed, it hasn't been submitted, but as you scroll down, you're going to see the answer to each question that we answered on the FAFSA. You do not need to print this page out. Once you hit submit, everything's going to be emailed to you. However, this is a really good opportunity to take a glance and just make sure you didn't accidentally hit an extra 0 or an extra number that you didn't mean to. So just scroll down and take a glimpse, make sure everything looks correct. Now, before we sign and submit, there's a couple questions that FAFSA has added. As you'll note though in the blue box, these questions don't affect aid eligibility. And in fact, every one of these questions even have an option for you to decline to answer if it's something you're not comfortable with. So there's these 2 questions, and then there's 2 more at the bottom. Answer them to your comfort level and hit continue. Now, because the student logged in at the beginning using their FSA ID username and password, it's now going to give them the opportunity to sign their FAFSA electronically, so they can read this statement, agree to the terms, and click sign. And now, as you'll notice, it's marked in green. The student has signed their FAFSA, but that the parent's signature is still needed. So we can select that blue box to provide a parent's signature. And it's going to ask which parent is going to sign. So the parent with the FSA ID username and password should be the one to sign. Only one parent needs to sign the FAFSA, not both. So select whichever parent has the FSA ID username and password to provide the parent's signature. And just like we did with the student, we would select that we agree and continue, and then we would enter the parent's FSA ID username and password to sign and submit the FAFSA. Because at that point, both student and parent would have signed electronically. Now, as I mentioned earlier, For a parent that does not have a Social Security number and may have had to enter all zeros, they wouldn't be eligible to sign electronically. But what they can do is print a signature page. So when you don't have the option to sign electronically, there is an option to sign and submit with other options. And then you would select print a signature page. It's going to show you a page like this that you'll print out. At the bottom, there's a line to sign along with the address that the signature page should be mailed to. This process does take about 14 business days compared to signing and submitting electronically, where it takes 3 to 5 business days. You'll notice though, as long as we'll show you how to submit in just a moment, it's still going to process through. What'll happen is once the Department of Education has received the paper signature page, they will then match it to the student's FAFSA that has been submitted electronically and the student has signed electronically, and they'll process it through so they will sync together. So once the parent has printed off that signature page and said that they're going to submit that by mail, you can still go ahead and submit the FAFSA. So you'll notice, like in this situation, one has signed electronically, one has not. It's still going to submit the FAFSA. It's just not going to process until that paper is received. Now, once we have submitted our FAFSA, you're going to see this form that says congratulations. Few pieces of information to point out here. In the top right-hand corner, you'll notice you have a confirmation number as well as a DRN or data release number. Your school may request this number if they need to do updates or changes to your FAFSA, or if for some reason you need to call FAFSA directly for help changing something, they may ask for that data release number. Again, don't worry, you don't need to print all of this out. It's going to be in your email. So once your FAFSA processes, it'll take about 3 to 5 business days from the point of this being submitted. If you were able to sign electronically, then you will receive something called a SAR, or a student aid report. That student aid report is what you're going to use. A lot of scholarships require, some colleges may ask for it separately. So you'll want to make sure you keep that email in a safe place that has your student aid report. Okay. Also at the bottom, you'll notice there's your estimated expected family contribution, or your EFC. That's another number that a lot of scholarships may ask for when you're completing those applications. So keep in mind, you're going to want to watch your email about 3 to 5 days after you submit that FAFSA. Really important, because once that happens, FAFSA may ask for additional information, or the schools that you've sent your FAFSA to, if you've already applied to those schools, may begin working on your financial aid award letter. So they may follow up with things like a request for verification or additional information. So at this point, it's really important that you not only watch your email, but you also check your portals for any schools that you've applied to on a regular basis so that you don't miss any deadlines. Thank you for joining us today. Before we close, we do have additional resources and information available to help you with your college access process. My name is Jessica Manchette. It's been a pleasure working with you today. If you have questions about financial aid or college access, we are here to help you. My number and email are on the screen. You're welcome to reach me there. And finally, as part of Future Ready Collier and the network of partners, we have compiled a resource kit to help students be prepared for their educational goals. We have a college and career readiness toolkit that is available at futurereadycollier.org/resources. Thank you again. Have a great day.